Hello everyone, I am Saurabh and I welcome you back to the Digital Board series by Orchids Biosciences. This is the first video for Heredity and Evolution. If you haven't watched the videos for previous chapters yet, I have provided its link in the description below, so please do look for it. This chapter is divided into two parts, Heredity and Evolution. In this video, we will start with the first part, which is Heredity. We will start with what is heredity, then we will discuss what is variation and its importance. We will then see what is genetics. After that, we will discuss how are traits transferred from the parents to their offsprings. So let's start with what is heredity. To understand what is heredity, first we need to understand what are traits. Traits can simply be defined as the characteristics or the features of an organism which are transferred from the parents to their offspring. For example, the color of the eye, the color of the hair, the shape of the nose are all characteristics of an organism which are transferred from the parents to the next generation called as offspring. These are all examples of traits. And the phenomena of inheritance of these traits from the parents to the offspring is called as heredity. So traits are the characteristics or features of an organism, whereas heredity is the phenomena of inheritance of these traits from the parent generation to the offspring. So this is about the term heredity, which is a phenomena of inheritance of traits from the parents to their offspring. Now let us try to understand what are variations. Variations can be easily defined as the minor differences which exist between individuals belonging to the same species. So the minor differences between the individuals belonging to the same species is called as variations. To understand variations, we can take a very simple example of the human species. We all have some basic structure which is same, but we all have some minor differences as well among each other. For example, one might have black hair, so the other might have brown hair. So these differences in the hair color itself can be an example for variation. One more other example we can see is the differences in the color of the eye. So one might have one specific color of the eye, so the other might have a different color. So the color of the eye is also different from one individual to another. So this also is an example for variation. So these are some minor differences which we can see between the individuals belonging to the human species. So this is variation. They are the minor differences between individuals of the same species. Now when we are clear with what is variation, let us try to understand why is variation necessary or considered important. We know that variation occurs during the process of reproduction. And we also know that reproduction is majorly divided into two types. They are asexual and sexual. We have already discussed about this topic even in the previous chapter, that is, how do organisms reproduce. In that we have seen that the chances of variation is much higher in case of sexual reproduction when compared to asexual reproduction, because here two parents are involved. That is why we also say, since the variation or chances of variation is higher in case of sexual reproduction is considered better than asexual reproduction. So this is the basic information which we already know about variation. To understand why variation is important or necessary, let us take an example. We know that there are millions of bacteria living on our planet Earth. Now, if suddenly the temperature on Earth increases, then most of the bacteria will simply die because they will not be able to bear or tolerate the heat. Now, if there is a variation, that is tolerance to heat. If some bacteria show this variation as tolerance to heat, they will be able to survive. So here we can see that by showing tolerance to heat, they are able to survive. So here variation becomes necessary for the survival of species. So it can help in the survival of species. So with the example of bacteria, we can see that the bacteria which were able to show the variation as tolerance to heat, they will be able to survive and further live on this planet, whereas which do not show the variation, that is most of them, they are called as non-variant because they do not show variation. This non-variant bacteria will not be able to tolerate the heat and thus cannot survive on the planet, and hence they will die. So here we can see that variation can help for the survival of the species. Now, when we are clear with what is heredity, what is variation, let us try to understand what is genetics. We know what is heredity, that is the inheritance of traits from the parents to their offspring. You also know what are variations. They are the minor differences between individuals of the same species. So genetics is the branch of biology which deals with genetic heredity or heredity and variations. So the branch of biology which deals with heredity and variations is called as genetics. Now, when we are clear with the basic terms of the chapter like heredity, variation and genetics, let us try to understand how are the characteristics or the traits of an organism transferred from the parents to their offspring. To understand what are responsible for these traits or characteristics, we need to understand where is the information located. So let us try to understand it. We know that our cell contains nucleus, and inside the nucleus there are chromosomes. This chromosome contains the genetic information, and this genetic information is transferred from the parents to their offspring. These chromosomes are made from long coil molecules of DNA. DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. So these chromosomes are made from long coil molecules of DNA. So the section of DNA which codes for a specific protein, and this protein is responsible for a certain character or trait, is called as gene. So gene is that segment of DNA which codes for a specific character or trait. So we can understand that genes are responsible for different traits. In other words, a gene will carry the genetic code for a particular characteristic. For example, the height of an organism is controlled by a specific gene. The shape of the nose is characterized or controlled by a specific gene. So different gene present in the chromosome will be responsible for different characteristic or different trait in an organism. So the differences in traits which we can see in an organism is because their genes are different from each other, and this gene contains the genetic code for a particular character. The inheritance of characters is both because the father as well as the mother, both the parents, that is father and mother, will contribute an equal amount of genetic information or genetic material to the child. So this genetic material equally from both father and mother will be passing on to the child. So for each trait or character in an organism, that is the child or the offspring, one of the factor will be from father and the another factor will be from mother. So every single character in an organism or trait in an organism will be having two factors, one from the father and one from the mother. So that is about an introduction to this chapter. Let us quickly recap what are the topics that we have discussed in this video. We started with what are traits. Traits are the characteristics or features of an organism which are passed on or inherited from the parents to their offspring. After traits, we have discussed what is heredity. Heredity is the phenomena of inheritance of traits from the parents to their offspring. After discussing what is heredity, we looked into what is variation. Variations are the minor differences which occur between individuals belonging to the same species. Then we discussed why are variations necessary or important. It is because it can help in the survival of species. So the organisms which are able to show the variation will be able to survive on the planet, whereas the non-variants will not be able to survive. So therefore it helps, or it might help in the survival of species. After discussing the importance, then we also discussed what is genetics. So genetics is the branch of biology which deals with heredity and variations. So the branch of biology which deals with heredity and variation is called as genetics. After learning what is genetics, we finally discussed how are traits transferred from the parents to their offspring. We saw that the cell is there, inside cell nucleus will be there, inside the nucleus chromosomes will be there, and chromosomes will be made up of long coil molecules of DNA, and this DNA will have sequences which are called as genes, and these genes will be responsible for coding for a specific character or trait. So these genes are having the genetic code for a specific character or trait in our body. Then we learned that both father and mother contribute equal amount of genetic information for the offspring. Let us take a question from the previous year. It is a very simple question for 1 mark from 2017. They are asking, why is variation important for a species? It is very simple, because variation can help in the survival of species. If you want, we can even give the example of the bacteria here, that how variations can help in the survival of species, where if the organism does not show variation, which are called as a non-variant one, they will not be able to survive on the planet and they will be wiped off. So if the organism is able to show some variation in their characteristics, it helps in the survival of their species. So that is why variation can become important for the survival of a species. With this, we come to the end of this video. In this video, we majorly covered all the basic concepts and the basic terms related to the chapter. In the next video, we will go into the details of the chapter, that is genetics. Thank you so much for watching the video. If you like this video, please hit the like button, do share it with your friends, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel.